Okay, welcome to the CivPay wrap-up video. We're going to go over this tool again front to back pretty quickly just to give you an idea of what you'd be looking for if you just downloaded from the website and started to plug and play. So I wanted to circle back to the last video because I had an omission in there, and that omission was how do the non-R60 expenses and or awards projections play into the extrapolation. So they're in there because we would want them to be in there with respect to our charts and what we're looking at. So how they are in there is, let me go ahead and plug in 20,000 for a PCS because I know that's what's going to happen, and then my wing commander says we're going to spend 75,000 on awards, no more no less, make it happen. And so those numbers come into here and they get put into our extrapolation on the front page. On the projections, to look at each pay period so that we're factoring in LWOP and hourly LWOP for pay periods only and full people coming back. These award work year equivalents and non-R60 work year equivalents, they are in there, and what will happen is as soon as those projection amounts are entered on the front screens here, or that there are actual awards coming into the data, those will come and roll up in here. And why can we roll them up here and then plays out? Because they're dollars, and so we translate those dollars into work year equivalents. So if we spend 75,000, it doesn't matter when, we're simply spending 75,000, which is going to have a work year equivalent. Same for the PCS. It's just a dollar amount. And so what happens is that in our projections they get rolled up right in the first pay period, and then you can see the next pay period drops down. If I were to come back into here and delete this and delete this, and then there's no awards execution whatsoever, 0 and 0, and you can see how this is now 956 is the actuals in there. Okay, so there was an omission. I wanted to make sure that you weren't thinking that we were giving you charts and things without obvious things like work years for awards and other UFR funded or unfunded things out of laps like PCSs. So that's that. So let's get started with the wrap up. If you were to download this template from our SharePoint version 1.0, you're going to download it, put it in a folder. In this tab here in the raw data, you would go to data connections, properties for this particular data connection. Please ensure that you're running the CivPay query that we give in class, or one that has the same data elements, so that this comes in and the calculations work right. Go to browse and trace this data connection, find the raw data, pull it into here, make sure it's a location that you're not going to change, and then it'll reset your command text with whatever the CivPay query that you gave it, and then that will pull into this and do all the calculations for the first time, and be ready for your be ready for your reports. Notes. Ensure that you're keeping any notes, like my one person that did 12 hours on the Sunday of 1 October for 2016. I'm going to keep note of that, but I am not going to add that to my report this way. Pay hour codes, these are all the things that kind of work for you. You can come in here and check to see, like if you have a particular pay hour code that for some reason we don't have, you can add it into here. And then if it counts towards hours, put a Y, or if you find one that we have that has a Y and shouldn't, or should have a Y and doesn't, you can make those changes, and then that will add. Just ensure that you are doing that correctly. Temps, we talked about. This is going to show you your temp text with the hours and kind of a Gantt chart style. LSL and awards is going to expand over time as the pay periods roll in and as there is LSL or awards. So if you need to know how many awards or how much dollars you paid out to awards and types of awards, that's where you'll find this. Employee hours, so this is going to show you 80-hour pay periods for most people, and if they executed them. If there's not, there might have been some LWOP there. There might have been someone coming on in the pay period. It's going to highlight in orange if it's more than 80 hours. Not to say that it's wrong, it's just going to highlight it to kind of flag you to check into it. Remembering that this R60 report's a snapshot in time. If there's a correction that needs to happen in a future pay period to correct for a prior pay period, it's not going to show here. It will show in that future pay period. So just be aware of that it could be a completely legitimate 106 hours, but those are things that you may want to check. LOA Recon, this is a big ticket item. Once again, it gives you the ability to do two things. I have issues or flagging issues in terms of my lines of accounting. So I do have an issue, that's true. Hit my slicer, and then my slicer for current pay period. Now I can see if PEC-PER and PEC-PIF is not adding up for the same person. I can look at the manpower PCN, look at the personnel system, how it flows into the financial systems, and see where we need to make corrections. That's a big deal. The second thing, I can unselect this because whether it has issues or not, it is reality, right? The next thing I can do is this 3821 audit. If I print this out and go down to my HR, civilian pay HR, and say, hey, let's go ahead and mic up what you're showing as hired and should be, and then I'll show you where it's being executed, so that you're both having that communication for your lines of accounting, your 3821 audits, annotating that, keeping your nose clean with respect to auditability. So important tab here. Definitely use this one. Your charts, this is going to show you based upon those projections that you're using. Right now it's set up for these charts, and I just noticed in the template that I don't have a chart title for this one, so I'll add that title before posted on the SharePoint. Please, by all means, make other charts as you see fit. These are the ones that are just going to come out of the box. Projection adjustments. Again, we spent almost 2 videos on this. This is where you make your money with managing your CivPay program, as long as there isn't a perfect world out there, meaning we're funded at 250 employees, they stay on the books, nobody takes LWOP, nobody deploys, then we're good to go. We don't even need this, right? But we're in the National Guard, and we know that the National Guard is being utilized to fill their active duty assignments, whether it is, I really say that wrong, but we're supplementing the active component in our RCPs. We do it maintenance and ops. We've been doing that for years and years and years, so we know that these things are going to happen. We're going to have natural, permanent, and temporary hirings, and people leaving, whether it's retirement or going to a new job, or we're going to have LWOP for periods of time that we expect and can track and can account for, and then we're going to have those individual LWOP occasions. Kind of the one that I used was for maternity leave. So let's just say, again, for example, 80 hours, 80 hours, 80 hours, 80 hours. This is the same person being out for maternity leave for 4 pay periods in a row. That's how you'd account for that. So gives you the ability to extrapolate to help decision makers. Again, enter projections in the yellow, no projection value, probably calculations, and we do lock down this sheet except for this area in here where you're just going to add either by people plus or minus, or by hours in this particular column. Make sure you're looking at these notes that we're putting up here. That's going to kind of help guide you in terms of what should we be using these for. Okay, and finally the work year execution tab. You have all of this in here. Make sure that these are updated off of your MRV. How many are funded? NGB temps funded. Bulks, add that in there. 100% is for this fiscal year, adds that for you. Hours in the fiscal year, ensure that these are all accurate. Kind of a unique year, but 80 and 80 total pay periods. This does this calculation for you. Add your current fiscal year authority, add last year's gross obligations. These limits can change. You can adjust these if needed, but as far as we know right now, this is still the same. And then down into here, you have the ability to update projected awards, so in a limit that you're expecting to spend, and then whenever it does come in, you take that out. Otherwise, this whole thing runs for you. And then you just check it out, get comfortable with it. This will expand for you as well. And there are annotations in here as best we can. And then as best we could as well, some of these calculations get a little bit lengthy. but instead of having cell references, we do things like equals work year projection adjustment, which is that cell in that other tab. And there is one more button, refresh report. There is a macro in this. It's simply the equivalent of coming into data and hitting refresh all twice. What it does do is it turns off cell calculations and screen updating temporarily so that the refresh happens much more quickly. Other than that, that is the only macro you'll see. So if you were to press this button, it'll run the refresh, and then it'll give you a nice little thing at the it'll give you a box that says, hey, this has been refreshed, save this report in your files for your records. And I believe if you come in here and hit Control P or to print, it will still show as one solid report like this. So it's kind of set up to show you that whole one-page snapshot there. You can do the same thing with your charts and things like that if you want to have a knee board for visuals for your leadership. So that about wraps up the recap. Again, download from SharePoint, reconnect the data connections, refresh, and then start plugging away at managing your civilian pay system at your base. So thanks for watching these videos, and we'll see you in the next.